As a common good, the right of private property, of a man's goods, as kind of an extension of himself. And so the seventh commandment has to do with justice, giving each his due, individual persons as well as the overall common good. So we spoke about a little text from St. John Chrysostom and other fathers of the church, and even St. Thomas Aquinas, that not to help the poor, for example, when they would be starving or they would be homeless, when we could, is not a sin against charity, but rather, as Chrysostom would say, a sin against justice. We're refusing to give them what is rightly his. And so it is not wrong for them to take something for the good of their family and themselves when we're unreasonably refusing it from them, when it means their life or their death or that of their family. We want to move on and treat, for example, the Catechism under the Seventh Commandment speaks about again, temperance as a virtue needed, and how, for example, we recreate, what we do for ourselves. We should be avoiding waste in projects. We should be, it forbids evasion of taxes. And if we realize that and we come to our senses, we confess it, we have to make restitution. We have to try to give back what was taken. What was stolen, what was injustice forbidden somebody, if it's between persons of a contract agreement. Certainly a lot of the evils of invoice manipulation and with regard to fraud, with regard to stealing at work or in projects or with the government or between persons. These are all sins against justice. We say a commutative justice, a justice between individual or between an institution and an individual. With regard to recreation, for example, the Catechism of the Catholic Church speaks about games. For example, card games, or there might be a wager, or perhaps even going to the casino or something of gambling. It says that if we're talking about small amounts, that it would be as a diversion that one can afford, that one's not depriving others of what's their due or their responsibilities, then they could be legitimate. However, I guess if one would go fishing, for example, buy some bait, some fuel for the boat, and go out and then strike out, not catch any fish, ended up in recreation spending $40, $50, and yet it was kind of a gamble. Fish weren't biting. So by a parallel, you could argue that one could do certain things of that nature with games, as long as it's small amounts and it's within their means and they're not depriving anybody of it. However, great discretion needs to be used in that, because I can't use money that belongs to somebody else. Justice is supposed to keep me from getting in big debts. I have to pay my debts, and I can't be using money that I don't have. And also, it would be seriously wrong to put big wagers on things which would put others at risk, myself included, and also not to be caring for the poor. With regard to the seventh commandment, the Catechism also speaks about our responsibility for the goods of the world, and all creation has to be ordered and dominated by man, not abused, but used for his high calling. So, for example, animals and plant life, animals have to be respected, and evil to animals would be sinful, causing them pain with undue proportion. It's not wrong for eating and clothing to kill animals for that purpose, as we see from the book of Genesis, but to kill animals or to cause them harm without a good proportion would be sinful. And however, the Catechism warns about treating animals as human beings. That, for example, the waste of money on animals. Now, this is something that we certainly have to face in culture today. People that are dying, celebrities that are giving inheritances to their animals and of millions of dollars. And while people are starving and poor, this is a great sin. Mother Teresa was in Germany at one time, and she hadn't seen a baby for a long time because of the negative birth rate at the time, but she was there. She saw a carriage and across the Autobahn, almost getting herself killed with the sisters, running there with great joy to go and look inside the little carriage, and lo and behold, a little chihuahua with a little ribbon and a little bonnet, and she became livid, terribly angry. She had a dog herself at Mother House, and had affection for it. You can love animals in the sense of affection, but you can only, you see, give your true affection and love to a person. And to give to animals what belongs only to humans is sinful. And of course, that is part now of our culture today that has to be addressed under the seventh commandment. Also, in this particular context, environment. To be concerned about our use of natural resources, how we use them, and what we do with society, because with temperance we're realizing, and justice, we're realizing that people are coming beyond us. And this world, you see, is to be ordered and utilized for their end as well. So that next time we'll move over and treat the eighth commandment as we continue our teaching on the Ten Commandments in the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Thank you, Father Champagne. Coming up next, in a conversation with Bishop Michael Jarrell, Monsignor Richard Green interviews Bishop Jarrell about another important topic.
My name is Father Tom Voorhees, and I am a priest for the Diocese of Lafayette. Almost 2,000 years ago, Jesus called the apostles to drop their nets and to follow him. Today, Jesus is still calling young men to the Catholic priesthood. If you are attracted to a life of service to God and neighbor, maybe God is calling you. If so, please contact your local Catholic priest in the Diocese of Lafayette.
Good morning and welcome to another conversation with the Bishop of the Diocese of Lafayette, Bishop Michael Jarrell. Bishop, thanks for being with us.
Well, you're quite welcome. It's good to be here with you and with everyone in our audience as well.
Today we would like to discuss a very special funeral mass held yesterday at the cathedral here in Lafayette. And so, Bishop Jarrell, what was so special about this mass?
Well, this was a mass, a funeral mass, for the unclaimed remains from the Lafayette Parish Coroner's Office. You know, the way I understand it, of course, when people die under certain circumstances, the coroner takes possession of the remains of the body, and then the family claims the body. But sometimes no one claims the body there at the coroner's office. And the way I understand it, they keep it in the morgue there for a certain length of time, and then the remains are cremated. But they hold on to the cremated remains. In this case, the remains have been with some of them for over 20 years with the coroner's office, but unclaimed. And the funeral we held yesterday was for 93 persons, the remains of 93 persons that we had this funeral mass for. It was quite a moving event.
Well, Bishop, is such a funeral mass something new?
It's entirely new in my experience. I've never been involved in anything like this, nor have I read about it anywhere else. You know, sometimes after hurricanes, we see that cemeteries, tombs are disturbed and so forth, and then when they're laid to rest again, there's a prayer and a public blessing and so forth. But this is quite different. Our funeral mass for 93 persons whose remains have been in the coroner's office just sitting there because they have not been claimed. Now sometimes the persons have names, we know who they are, but maybe could not get in touch with their family, or maybe we got in touch with the family, but the family did not want to claim the remains. In some cases, I think the persons were unknown. We don't know who they were. So it's just a variety of things, but a total of 93.
Well, Bishop, how did this new funeral mass situation come about?
Well, it came about through the efforts of Ms. Kim Boudreau, who is the director of our Lafayette Catholic Service Centers in downtown Lafayette. And of course, she deals with a number of the homeless people and has gotten to know them. And she learned that one of them had died, but she'd never read about a funeral of any kind. So she inquired at the coroner's office about a client. And that's when she began to learn about the remains that are there, because they have never been claimed, so they've never had a funeral and never had a burial. And when she discovered that so many had been unclaimed, she simply felt that this was not right, and she asked a simple question: can I claim them? Well, from what I understand, the coroner's office people were not sure about that, and everyone had to research the legal process. But according to Kim Boudreau, they were very cooperative and wanted to see this project done. And so were very helpful in letting her claim the remains of these, those that were unclaimed. She simply felt that they deserved a funeral and a decent burial, and she pursued that. So that's how it all came about. Then she went on to speak with Father Chester Arsenault, who is a pastor of the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist, and he agreed that something should be done. And the officials at St. John's Cemetery were also very helpful in arranging a place for the burial. So people just all pitched in and felt that it was a good project. And I think it took a year or so to get all the legal work done, but it was able to be done. And they invited me to celebrate the funeral, and I just thought it was a wonderful opportunity to show our respect for the dead. And
well, Bishop, the church tries to be pro-life. It pretty much identifies us in many ways. Do you see this as a pro-life issue?
I don't think we would ordinarily consider it that, but I think in a way it really is, because we're recognizing the dignity of each individual and respecting them. And in our Christian tradition, everyone deserves a funeral and a decent burial. You know, we glean from the gospel what are called the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. And one of the spiritual works of mercy is to pray for the living and the deceased. Mm-hmm. And one of the corporal works of mercy is to bury the dead. And we take this obligation very seriously. You know, when you talk about pro-life, many years ago, Cardinal Joseph Bernardin, now deceased, came up with an image of a seamless garment. You know, from conception to death and burial, we respect the human beings and we respect life. Mm-hmm. And he just saw that as a garment that if you were going to be faithful, you don't just pick certain issues. Yeah. It's the whole gamut. And so I see this, yes, as part of it. For example, the church requires the respectful disposal of cremated remains of people. And that is what we did yesterday. We gave them a final resting place.
Bishop, would you have a final prayer then for those who have died, for
Sure.
our relatives and friends, but these too?
Fine. We'll offer that simple prayer of the church. Eternal rest granted to them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Bishop Gerald and Monsignor Green. Bishop Gerald is always eager to share the Catholic faith with everyone. We hope this program has allowed you to grow closer to God and the Catholic faith. We hope you've enjoyed our program because it is produced for you. So please join us next week on this station as we tell the people about the Diocese of Lafayette and the good news of our Catholic faith.